So this is not a glitch in the YouTube matrix, this is just me having a massive brain fart. Because I realized cleaning up my storage, I actually have two of these Sega plug-and-play red colored versions. Yeah, but it's not like completely waste, because this right version I owned for the first time had like some very strange paint issues or some weird things going on over it. Don't know what the previous owner did. So I'm glad I have like a very nice and clean version. But in other words, let's take a close look at it, and it's going to be some Sega time. So it's going to be a blast to the past with the Sega Genesis, or in this case the Megadrive plug-and-play red version. So we do have all kinds of different, let's say, editions. I can still remember that these things were for sale like years later, after like the Megadrive was perished from the stores. And I mean, in particular, when it comes to, let's say, there was nothing you can actually find. These things were like squeezed out like crazy, and many of these devices came out. However, this controller is completely nostalgia, with a simple reason, because it's based on the first version of the Sega. I don't know if they actually copied a mold or whatever it is. This thing looks pretty legit when it comes to that. So, however, the form factor of these controllers are very comfortable, and to be honest, and I think this has to do with the wear and tear of the original controller. If you're going to be comparing this, yeah, the D-pad of the old school, let's say, Sega Genesis controller, it's not like super bad, but I personally prefer the 6-button controller when it comes to that. But it was absolutely cool just to see this, and just to have a little bit of enjoyment of the nostalgia vibe of the controller itself. But the quality itself, you can just feel that there is a little bit of difference between the 3 buttons, and this is one of the indications. What I find quite interesting is, if you're going to be looking into the button shape, you can see that it's been formed in a certain way that makes it a little bit more comfortable, and it's kind of interesting. And in here we're finding the menu button, because this thing has multiple games. Next up, we're having the system itself. It does have a nice way to it when the batteries are implemented. We can just power it on over here, and then of course we need to put the batteries in here, already implement them. So that's it. And when it comes to plugging in, I think there is an option even for a 6-volt power supply, so that it would be interesting if you're going to be using this at home, or of course. So what is kind of cool is that, let's say, the battery compartment is completely ruined, because most of the people will forget to freaking pull out the batteries. That happens a lot when it comes to these plug-and-play devices. Connection wise, it's going to be old school, so let's try a CRT to begin with. Let's go fully retro mode with the CRT. Okay, so let's power on the system itself, and let's go in the Sega toys. We're going to be flickering, we're going to be changing out to 50 Hz, because, yep, it's not a Sega Genesis. I think the biggest downside to these freaking devices is that we're only going to have a couple of games. There's not like a massive library, and updating them to, let's say, having like 100 plus games is not possible so far, I understand. So let's check it out, what is going on. We're having Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Echo the Dolphin, Columns, the Ooze, okay, Game Ground, and Alex Kidd. So let's start off with Alex Kidd. Let's see how this freaking thing works. Pressing menu will automatically bring you back to the main menu. Yeah, there's a little bit of downside. There was no quick load, quick save when it comes to that. Yep, and this is going to be sounding really slow for a lot of you guys, because this is just the PAL shenanigans that we needed to live with. Yep. Back in the day, I didn't know that the PAL was so horrible. Okay, but beside that point, let's get into the game. Normally I'm almost dying with the first like car that's trying to hit me. The sound also sounds kind of weird, but that has to do because of the mono. I think that's another thing. The overall emulation performance of these things are pretty bad. But the question remains, is it so bad that this is not going to be really enjoyable? I do wonder one thing, so how many people will like Sonic 2? So where Sonic 1 is absolutely nostalgia for me, I'm more like a Sonic 1 / Sonic 3 and Knuckles fan. Personally, in Sonic 2, I can still remember that my nephew actually had this. He was older than me, but where I think Sonic 2 was absolutely a great game, for me it's not going to be like the older one. I can still remember back in the day, I never really owned it. I think I rented it a couple of times through that store called Videoland. But beside that, I know Sonic 3 and Knuckles was for me like the ultimate combination, and absolutely a lot of fun. The downside is, like, with the mono and the bad emulation, is that When it comes to the visual-wise, on an old school CRT this just looked great, but if you're going to be listening to the sound effects, the ring sound, oh, my ears are bleeding, and you can see that the jumping sound is really muted out. Not to a point you cannot hear it, but it's very difficult to notice. But if you're going to be playing this on CRT, and I think it's just okay. It would be cool to have like these plug and play devices with Genesis games. I do wonder if they're out there and how much they're actually going to be costing. Because where they released so many of these freaking devices, finding them sometimes for a good deal is quite interesting because it's going to be a challenge itself. Because I noticed some stores were asking a lot of money and even more crazy amount of money if they're going to be complete in box. Another game that I personally never got into was the Echo the Dolphin. Such a cool visual, nice looking game. I can also remember, didn't they release the sequel on the Sega Genesis then? I guess I remember getting into a certain point that all the creatures and all the sea creatures were going to be sucked out of the freaking sea. I always found that such a weird thing. Where I'm a big fan of puzzle games on Tetris, I was never really got into that column thing. The same goes with Dr. Mario, another game that is cool, but never got really into that too. But beside that, I got some really strange music. I do wonder like who was making these like say decisions of like putting what game on plug and play. Also, what kind of limitations did they have? Did they have limitations regarding storage capacity, or is it licensing stuff? It's still very interesting when it comes to that. This is kind of a fun game. I've been playing this on the ad games, plug and plays. I think if your character dies, it just actually dies and you cannot select it anymore. Do we need to click this? Oh yeah, there we go. Oh yeah, getting this power up, that's such a cool idea. Oh, we need to kill every single enemy or just going to the exit. I do want, let me know in the comments, did you ever have these plug and play devices and play them in the car, having like these mobile screens? But that was actually the idea, to just have this particular, like say, item or this controller. And then we have so many different of these very weird games. So this is one of the games that is kind of fun, it's kind of challenging, but it doesn't really appeal to me. So that's actually a small collection. Then of course we're having the Ooze, that's another game that I have no connection with. For me, like, this is not like one of my favorite plug and plays because many of these games have no really connection. Sonic 2 is cool, of course. 1995, the Ooze. Oh, that sound is so freaking awful. It's so freaking awful. Oh man, oh man, oh man. Part 1, okay. Again, a lot of intro stuff. The only thing the only once I played it was on the endgame systems. It's such a weird game. Does have some really groovy music. Completely says wrong, but. So when it comes to plug and play devices, I think they're like fun novelties to collect. However, if you can find them cheap, because I did notice some of them, I already mentioned throughout the video, are getting super expensive now. I do wonder if I see these things complete in box and they were asking like $60, are there actually people paying that? Okay, one thing is for sure, I got a freaking wrong screwdriver. Where's the other one? Ah, there we go. That's much better. So let's remove the battery before I am going to be freaking forgetting that. Let's see how the overall pin or the quality is, because I know, yeah, this one already had some wear and tear when it comes to that, of the leaking battery. I was like lucky that was still working, but there was like one of those many problems. You can just actually see in here how it's already corroded. I've been cleaning it up, trying to be doing the best I can at this point, but you know, maybe it's better to do a full tear down and just clean the contacts in some cleaning, let's say, materials to get everything like spotless when it comes to that. But let's take this thing apart and let's see what we're going to be finding in the inside. So, oh man, I was looking into screwdrivers, finally getting this very easy plastic tool was the thing that I needed. So we're going to be opening it up. I think it would be interesting if somebody in the community would like do the upgrade, that we can even implement more games. But yeah, there was no SD card or USB port or whatever. These things are quite old. It's full of capacitors. So I think this can be a very concerning situation. And I mean, particularly when these things are getting really old. Like maybe these things can become a problem because of their leakage and stuff like that of the age. We have it already with, let's say, really old game systems. So these things are going to be needing a recap in the future. So beside there's not a lot of information over here saying F440. Some information about that, like, but there's not even some hot glue with some cables for powering on. But beside that, the caps do seem to be looking nice, so there's nothing to worry about now. But for now, I think this is actually not a lot of stuff on the inside. Black blob like always, and some cabling. I really find always interesting that they're putting a piece of metal over here over the cables. But beside that, there was nothing much to actually see, because yeah, it's also like a very easy plug and play thingy. I would love to review those Genesis versions to see what kind of games and what kind of ROMs they're using. I'm guessing just the original 60Hz versions. But when it comes to the Sega Toy plug-and-play device, it's so interesting, and it would be fun to see what kind of weird things we can find on conventions in the future. Thank you all for watching. Let me know what do you think of these devices. Did you ever own one? Let me know in the comments, and it would be great if you subscribe and the little bell, because it means I will see you in the next video. Wait. Yeah.